pop up for 1 second, but then you're just going to close it. Takes a second. No, that's your live stream. You want to close that though.
Yeah.
Okay, now go back to your Zoom. Yeah, open that up. There, you should be good. You're doing live stream. Got it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is 6:01. We are live streamed. The meeting is now in order. We're gonna start with HB. We're gonna start with HB 92. HB 92 is HB 92 is a ground rent lease bill. And Matthew, if you would, and first off, I want to apologize to everyone off the top here, because I'm going to try to go through these as fast as possible, because you all have heard that we've got other things that we have to get to. HB 92 is a ground lease bill. And Matthew, if you could go through this, I'd appreciate it, sir. Matthew, you have the floor. And
Certainly.
yes, you can see I made your code. You have the floor, Matthew.
Certainly. So this bill establishes that a ground lease or amendment is
I don't hear
not
you.
registered. I'm sorry.
There you go.
Okay. This bill establishes that a ground lease or amendment is not registered until the ground lease or amendment is posted on the online registry that's currently maintained by the Department of Assessments and Taxation. Also establishes a process for a leasehold tenant of a ground lease to challenge and bring action against a ground lease holder who takes specified collection actions after failing to properly register a ground lease. Ground lease registration or amendment that has been voided by ESTAT under the provisions of the bill is prohibited from being considered registered. It also expands on general prohibitions for collection efforts for a ground lease if the ground lease is not registered, by prohibiting any attempt to collect ground rent payments, and prohibits collection or the attempt to collect late fees, interest, collection costs, or other expenses related to the ground lease. I'm happy to go into more detail about the bill or answer any questions. I would note that this bill was voted favorably. The cross file for this bill was voted favorably out of the Judicial Proceedings Committee in the Senate.
That is correct. It was voted out on March 17. I was going to mention that as well. Are there any questions relevant to this particular piece of legislation? As we all know, ground rents were, whoops, I think someone was, okay. Ground rents were established by King Charles I in 1634. Do I have a favorable amendment on HB 92?
There are no amendments on HB 92.
You're right. You're correct. Do I have a favorable?
I need to
motion?
start the video, and I need to.
Uh-oh.
Can you hear me?
Oh,
I think it's been resolved.
Mr. Chair, I'm willing to move favorable. I just don't know if we have a quorum.
Do we have a quorum?
Matthew, hang on a second. Let me see if I have everyone. Full screen. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't see it now. What's it? 1, 2. Here, now we got a quorum coming in. 2 people do admit.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'm trying to hit start video for this camera, but it won't come on. I just want you to know for the record, I'm not sure if everybody can see me, but I can't see myself in the little black box.
All right, let's hang on 1 second here. We got another delegate.
Is your camera slide all closed?
No, ma'am. I don't
All
think
right.
so. No, the light is on too, so which is weird.
All right, so let's just check here. Delegate Allen is here. Delegate Baker is here. Delegate Boyce, Regina Boyce is here. Siliberti, not yet. Ann Healy is here. Mary Lehman is here. I saw Jeff. Where's Jeff?
That's me talking, Mr. Chair,
Okay, Jeff.
trying to get my camera to come on, but it will not.
Right.
I keep hitting start video, stop it. Just the
That's
lights
okay.
on. Yeah.
That's okay. We know what you look like.
Okay.
So we have a quorum. And right now, ladies and gentlemen, there was a motion favorable for HB 9.2. Do I have a second for favorable with HB 9.2?
Second.
Okay, great. Any questions on HB 9.2? Hearing none, all in favor of HB 9.2 signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed say no. The ayes have it. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Let us go now to HB 101. This is condominiums, and this is the clean energy equipment by Delegate Charkoudian. Matthew, can you give us an update on that one, please, Matthew?
Certainly. Just going to pull the bill up now for the members. But the general update since the last meeting we had is that there is now an amendment that was supplied by the sponsor. I had sent that out earlier. The amendment number is HB 0101-913025-1. And you should have both an amendment and a reprint of the bill with the language. The first amendment, you'll see amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 makes 2 changes. It would first limit the definition of clean energy equipment to electric vehicle recharging equipment, solar energy equipment, and energy storage systems. The original definition was very broad and included a number of illustrative examples. So this would be an amendment to make the scope only specific to these 3 instances of clean energy equipment. And the second part of amendment number 2 would limit the interests that the homeowners association, condominium may grant to leases in excess of 1 year. So it would repeal language that would have added easements, rights of way, and licenses. Otherwise, the bill is still the same in terms of what it covers and what it does. I can do a quick rundown of what the bill would do ultimately.
Go ahead, please do so, Matthew.
Sure.
And
So the bill would establish a specific procedure by which the governing body of a condominium may grant, in this case, after amended, if it were amended, a lease in excess of 1 year, affecting the common elements of the condominium for the installation and use of leased clean energy equipment. So either the board of directors by a majority vote or the council of unit owners by affirmative vote of unit owners having at least 51% of the votes in the council would be authorized to undertake the activities outlined in the bill. And for the board of directors, they grant an interest envisaged by the bill only at a meeting of the board held after at least 30 days notice to all unit owners of record. And then the last provision is that a mortgagee or a group of mortgagees would be prohibited from overruling a vote to grant an interest envisaged by this bill.
And as Matthew indicated, there are 2 amendments on this. The first amendment is just clarifying in the title on page 1. And the second amendment just talks about the electric vehicle recharging equipment, solar energy equipment, and energy storage systems. So those are the 2 amendments, ladies and gentlemen. And I would like to move the amendments, please. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the amendments?
I see delegates Lehman, Naraki, and Healy. So I guess Delegate Lehman, I think, had her hand up first.
Oh, hang on a second. Yes, Delegate Lehman.
Actually, Mr. Chair, Delegate Naraki had his hand up before me, so he can go ahead.
My
Delegate
apologies.
Naraki, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Delegate Lehman. Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time. My discussion was more not necessarily about the amendments, but the broader bill. So I could certainly wait if you want me to wait on that, Mr. Chair.
Please do.
Okay.
Delegate Lehman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I need to understand on the second amendment was that, and I'm sorry that I didn't get a chance to read it if you emailed it to us, Matt, but is that second amendment was initiated by the bill sponsor or was that was on her own at the request of a stakeholder? How did that come about?
So this is a sponsor amendment, what we were just discussing. It was an agreement that the sponsor is attempting to work out with one of the parties who came in favorable with amendment on the bill.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Delegate Lehman. Delegate Healy.
Yeah, I'll wait for the bill. I don't have a problem with the amendments. I support the amendments.
Thank you so much. Any additional questions on the amendments? Thank you so much. So we have a motion favorable and a second on the amendments. All in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
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 Fantastic. Any opposition on the amendments? Seeing none, we have now the bill before us as amended. I move favorable on the bill as amended. Is there a second?
Second.
Fantastic. We have a motion and a second on the bill as amended, and we do have several questions. Let me go first to Delegate Nareki.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. Maybe this is a question for Matt, or I'm just going to generally throw it out there because I'm trying to understand. So one of the provisions of the bill that I have my most concern about is the sort of simple majority vote by the board of directors. And I'm just curious if there's other instances. I used to serve on one of these boards where there was 5 of us on a board of directors for several hundred units. Frequently there would only be maybe 3 of us there. So you might have a majority vote of like 2 people to encumber an entire condo association here or something like that. Is this typical, Matt, that we see in other things where we have potentially a really, really small majority of folks being able to have this kind of say for an entire association?
There are other instances where the decision that's being made would be left just to the board of directors. I imagine that a quorum would still be necessary for those meetings. But yes, there are other instances where you'd have a majority. I think the bill actually may have some examples of those because there's existing language here that is being modified. I'm just trying to find an example. Or did I make a note of that? My apologies. I'm just taking a quick look at my notes because I believe I addressed this there.
And while Matt's looking for
Now,
that, while Matt's looking for that, typically when there is like Matthew said, when there is a board, there is always a odd number of board members.
Sure.
And when a discussion is had in terms of whether to approve or to not approve, the majority of that odd number is what typically dictates whether the motions are approved or not.
Well, so Delegate Naraki, for example, the board of directors, in language that's modified to get to paragraph 5 of the bill, which is the new language, the board of directors may, by majority vote, grant easements, rights of way, licenses, leases in excess of 1 year or similar interests for the provision of utility services or communication systems for the exclusive benefit of the units. So that's one other example with parallel language that has been that this new provision has been excluded from.
Okay, so if I understand you correct, Matt, that would be like if someone wanted to put like telephone lines or something like that. Is that what would kind of constitute communication systems there? Is that what that means?
Not really having the time to go and review the specific provisions of this language. I could not say affirmatively, but that's to answer your broader question. That's another example of where you would give similar levels of discretion to the board of directors by a majority vote.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You good, Delegate?
Yeah, I understand kind of what the intent is there. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Delegate Healy?
Thank you very much. I just wanted to understand if with the amendments, which have narrowed it significantly, if this satisfies most of the stakeholders. Do you know, has this been worked out amongst all the different groups, or is it just one person that was in favor that wanted that amendment?
There was one favorable with amendment group. The rest of the parties were favorable. I believe this satisfies the group that was favorable with amendment, which was the Maryland Bankers Association. There were a number of individuals who were simply listed as unfavorable, but provided no testimony as to determine why they were in opposition to the
Sure.
bill.
Well, but okay, let me ask it a different way.
Mhm.
The folks who were, does the amendment improve the bill for the stakeholders, or does it still create problems for them? As
Well,
is?
a representative of the Maryland Bankers Association is here. My understanding is that this does resolve the issues that
Okay.
the Bankers Association had. However, Delegate Holmes, if you'd like,
I'm
have
on the
them
call.
speak.
I'm happy to speak. It's Bob Enton.
Mr. Chairman, it's up to you, you know, who you want to
Yeah.
recognize, but
Oh.
I just wanted to question, really, Mr. Chair, if you're aware that this has been worked out. That's all I want to know.
It is my understanding that everything has been worked out with this amendment.
Okay, thank you.
Did you want to add something, Mr. Hinton?
No, both the Bankers Association and the builders worked out the amendment with the sponsor.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now have before us, thank you, Delegate Haley. I appreciate you asking that question to make sure everything is being taken care of properly. I appreciate that, Delegate Haley. We now have the bill as amended before.
Move the
and
bill as
we have a-
amended.
we have
Second.
there you go. Any additional discussion on the bill as amended? Hearing none, all in favor of HB 101 as amended signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? Thank you very much. That bill will get a favorable report to the full committee. Let us now go to HB 118. And HB 118 is another ground rent bill. And
Move favorable.
well, hang on, we have an amendment on this one.
Oh, sorry.
Matthew, give us the amendment if you don't mind, please. Sure, and this amendment that I had sent out was HB 0118-473-228-1. When reviewing the testimony from the Department of Assessments and Taxation, what my understanding of the notice provisions and that the department is required to produce under this bill are intended as the only form of notice that can be used if a party is seeking to evict somebody from the property or recover the property or to provide a bill for a ground rent. So the amendments simply clarify that the forms produced by the Department of Assessments and Taxation are the form a ground leaseholder must use for notice or to provide a bill consistent with that testimony. And I believe that the department worked very closely with the sponsor, and the sponsor's been made aware of the language here.
And the department, SSTAT, is also okay with the amendment as well.
The department's on the call if you'd like to have them address the amendment.
Jonathan, do you want to address the amendment, please, sir?
Yeah, the department's in strong favor of this amendment. This is going to make the whole process easier for everyone, the ground lease holders and the ground lease tenants.
All right, move the amendment.
Is there a second on the amendment?
Second.
Any additional discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, all in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
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 And the bill as amended is before you. Is there a motion?
Move favorable.
Is there a second on the bill?
Second.
Second.
Fantastic. Any discussion on HB 118 as amended? Hearing none, all in favor of HB 118 as amended signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Seeing none, HB 118 will receive a favorable report from Housing and Real Property to the full committee. We will now go to HB 182, which is Delegate Resnick's bill. And there you go, right there. Matthew, you want to give us an overview of HB 182, please, sir?
Sure. So the committee members may remember, or the subcommittee members may remember this bill. This is about restrictive covenant modifications for unlawfully restrictive covenants. One of the issues that the subcommittee had asked about last time was, well, why didn't this cover counties? I don't know why it didn't originally cover counties. It was drafted to municipalities. However, I did have an opportunity to speak with. I actually had an opportunity to draft an amendment if the subcommittee wants to consider it that would add counties. That amendment number is HB 0182-493-823-1. It's two amendments. The first amendment's technical, and the second amendment would simply authorize counties to have the same powers as a municipality would under this bill as proposed.
Fantastic. Let me go to Delegate Long first, and then Delegate Norricky. Delegate Long.
Very briefly, Mr. Chair, my only concern is, were we able to address the concerns fully from last week? I think Matthew remembers what I'm talking about, restrictive covenants to a certain extent. That is the only concern I've had. And again, I wish I would have had it in my email beside me, but some of the other committee members may know the concern I raised last week.
If I may, Mr. Chair, Delegate Long, is that you're concerned about why they even have the option to keep the language?
Correct. I don't like to make fuss of many things, but that's the thing I have issue with.
So I believe we touched on it last week a bit, but the real issue there, and I think why the language was really included to allow somebody to opt out, is that an individual controls what is in their deed. And while there could be plenty of provisions that go in a deed that are not enforceable, they still have that control. It's kind of a base issue in property law. So I think that's why that language was included, and just out of an abundance of caution that might be a challengeable issue in the future. It still doesn't, having the language there obviously still doesn't make these provisions enforceable. There's Supreme Court case law on this. There's I'm drawing a blank on the statute, but there's housing discrimination statutes to this effect at the federal level. This language is simply dead language, and I understand the desire to want to just remove it wholesale, but an individual still controls what is in their deed.
Yeah, and like Matthew said, I like the termination, the definition I use, dead language, because the language that is offensive in these documents is in fact dead language, meaning that it is not enforceable at all. And but sometimes the persons who own the document still don't wish to take the language out, but it is 100% totally unenforceable. And the amendment that was added was based upon discussion that why just municipalities, and to expand the language to municipalities, and that's what the amendment is before us. Delegate Norricky.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to echo what our colleague Delegate Long said. I don't understand. I mean, I get it. I understand what we're saying here, why it has to stay in there, but I don't understand why we can't figure out some way to get the language out. I just think it should be out of these deeds. It doesn't serve a purpose other than to be hurtful and all kinds of other bad things inside of these deeds.
And all of us are in agreement with that. There is no disagreement whatsoever that the language some kind of way needs to disappear. What this particular bill does is attempts to strike it when it's found by the municipalities, and now by the municipality, and now by the county. At some point, maybe we can, but I think that's going to have to be legislation probably for another day. But we do all of us agree. It is offensive language. It should be done away with, even though it is dead language.
I understand, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to give that viewpoint there.
I do appreciate that. We have an amendment before us, and the amendment simply adds counties to the modifications allowed instead of just municipalities. Do I have a motion on the amendment, please?
Move the amendment.
Thank you. Is there a second on the amendment?
Second.
Thank you very much. Any additional discussion on the amendment to add counties to the bill? Seeing none, all in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? Seeing none, HB 182 will receive a favorable report from the Environment and Transportation Committee. And right now, because of the time frame, we're going to skip down to HB 462. Mr. Chair, Matthew, if you could skip HB 462, I would appreciate it.
Absolutely, Delegate, Mr. Chairman. But given the small window of time, it might be better to switch to HB 567 because that is a much smaller and simpler bill to discuss.
You're exactly correct.
Okay.
Let's go to HB 567 because we have 3 minutes left. Matthew, can you give us a brief overview of HB 567, please?
Absolutely. So this is the bill you may remember from yesterday that authorizes a condominium regime to be established for residential purposes on specified property owned by an affordable housing land trust. Currently, to do this, there are only a couple different entities that this would be allowed for, including the state, a county that's enacted charter, home rule, municipality, or subject to certain additional provisions, land controlled by WMATA. This would add to that list land that's in an affordable housing land trust. After the discussion yesterday in the bill hearing, it sounds as though this is something that parties can already execute by way of creating a commercial condominium regime for the land and then a subsequent residential regime. This would, in theory, just avoid that first step and make the process a little more simple.
And if you recall, ladies and gentlemen, from the discussion, what was happening is that in order to create these affordable housing land trusts, the individuals had to create 2 separate condominium units. One condominium jurisdiction for the land, and then another one for the construction of the buildings. And so it was cumbersome for them to get around creating 2 separate condominium jurisdictions. And what this bill does is allows them to easily circumvent that process for land trusts in an effort to do it more affordable housing. Delegate Lehman.
Yeah, yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just as an aside, and I should have asked this question probably of Delegate Lewis when she presented the bill. Is this situation unique to Baltimore City? I know she's doing it as a local bill, but is it unique to Baltimore City? Does anyone know? Do you know, Mr. Chair?
Matthew?
Well, the language would apply statewide. I recall at the hearing there was a specific project that Delia Lewis was talking about, or with regard to Baltimore City, or with regard to Baltimore City, but it would apply statewide.
Oh, it is a statewide bill. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. The example they talked about was, and her witnesses, obviously, because the delegate is from Baltimore City, was about Baltimore City, but I just wondered. Thank you.
Any county could do something like this, or it would apply in any county.
And I tried to emphasize the point when I asked the question about ground rents, because there's language in the bill that talks about leases, ground leases, which is not the same as ground rents. And that's why I asked that, so it would be clear to everyone that this is not particularly a Baltimore City issue. Delegate Ricky?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I was trying to find my notes real quick. What, Matt, maybe you could explain it. Why the specific language about WMATA in here? I was trying to find what my notes were on that, and I can't find it right now.
Unfortunately, I haven't prepared anything for that specific question. That's just one of the current authorizations regarding or under this.
Yeah, if I could, maybe I could help. as chair of the subcommittee on bi-county agencies. WMATA is considered a bi-county agency because it only applies in Montgomery, Prince George's County. And WMATA is owns property that is, and they're trying to redevelop it, and they have their own regime. It's all governed by an interstate compact. So it's this, we have to match what the compact says in every jurisdiction in Maryland, DC, Virginia, and the federal government.
Okay. Thank you, Delegate.
Yep.
Fantastic. Thank you, Delegate Healy. Any additional discussions on HB 567? Do I have a motion in favor?
Motion.
Second.
Any additional discussion on HB 567? Hearing none, all in favor of HB 567 signify by saying aye.
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 And I've got, for the record, I've got Delegate Siliberti sitting right next to me. He's also voting in favor of this as well. Any opposition to HB 567? Hearing none, HB 567 will also receive a favorable recommendation from HRP to the full committee. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, because of the time, we're going to have to adjourn the Housing and Real Property Subcommittee and reconvene next week. Ms. Jones, who's that ugly gentleman sitting right next to you?
I figured Mr. Malone is making a guest appearance.
Hello.
This meet because we are live streamed. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you, Ms. Jones.
Bye-bye.
Good to see you guys.